Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another episode here on True Confessions, Naija. The confession you're about to listen to comes from a message we received from one of our sisters, and the confession reads like this. Hello, everyone. This one is heavy. I'm reading this myself because I sent this message and asked to stay anonymous. Please keep me anonymous. I wanted to tell the whole truth, every little piece, even the parts I'm ashamed of. I want you to hear it like it happened to me. I want you to feel my fear, my hope, and my confusion. I want you to judge, to comfort, to argue. Whatever you do, just don't ignore it. I am 27 years old. I'm a single mother. I live in Namibia. My son is 6 years old, and he's the best thing in my life. Everything I do is for him. But before I became a mother, and even after, I've always been unlucky in love. I come from a family where people use traditional medicines, and sometimes they speak about curses. For as long as I remember, things never went right for me the way they did for other people. Jobs that looked promising fell through. Friendships ended suddenly. Relationships crashed without explanation. I grew up thinking maybe I'm just unlucky. I hated that thought, but it followed me. A few months ago, I met a man who changed everything, at least on the surface. I met him at a gathering. He was polite, older than me, and he moved with a calm, confidence I had never seen before. He told me he had a family. He told me he was married. He told me there were complications at home. But he never seemed like the kind of man who would hurt me. He would say small things that made me feel safe. I will take care of you. You and your child will be fine. Don't worry about money. He showed up. He came with groceries. Sometimes he would just sit with my son and play while I washed plates. He would hold my hand in the markets when people stared. He introduced me to his family, not just his friends. His real family, and they welcomed me like I was one of them. They called my mother and spoke about a future. He told his parents he wanted to play Lobola for me. My mother cried when she heard that. At first, I told myself I was careful. He wasn't the kind of man who shouted in public or beat anyone. He never begged me for sex. In fact, we had not had sex yet. He would stay the night sometimes and he would sleep beside me. He could be very affectionate in public. He would hold my waist, kiss my forehead, put his hand on my hair. Small things that made me feel like I mattered. But when I asked about his wife, he would shut down. It's complicated, he would say. That's none of your business. He would smile and then change the subject. One day, he told me he was starting the divorce process. He said it would take time, but he was determined. He said he would provide for my child and buy us a house. My heart did a funny thing when he said that. I had never been promised so much, and I wanted to believe. I wanted a father for my son, and I wanted someone who would choose me. Then things started to get strange. It began when he suggested I see a Sangoma. He didn't push me at first. He brought it up like it was a practical idea. You come from a family where people talk about luck, he said. Sometimes a Sangoma can help remove barriers. I'm not saying you need it, but if you feel it might help, I'll support you. He offered to pay because he said he wanted me to be happy and to stand alongside me when I worked on my life. I agreed because I thought it would show him I was serious about our future. I thought maybe this will fix all the bad things that kept happening to me. The Sangoma's house was on the edge of town. It smelled of herbs and smoke. There were jars and clothes and strange amulets hung from the ceiling. I was nervous, but the man, the one I was falling for, sat with my mother and said everything would be okay. The Sangoma was a tall woman with sharp eyes. She spoke softly and told me she could help remove the blocking spirit. She asked for things, small weird things at first. a necklace, a string of my hair, a drop of my blood. She said, some remedies require a sacrifice of a kind, and I thought she meant herbs and food. I didn't fully understand what she asked for because I trusted the man who brought me there. The Sangoma worked on me for 5 days. I sat in a circle of smoke while she chanted. She asked me to take off some of my clothes so she could cleanse me properly. I felt embarrassed, but my mother said it was part of the ritual and to be brave. She asked me to say things I had never said out loud, promises to obey the path, to accept her help, to return with gifts. Later on, I learned I had also been asked to add something intimate to the mixture she was using. I won't say the exact words she said to me in the ritual. I will say this. There were things asked of me that made me uncomfortable in the moment. Things I consented to because I believed they would fix my life. After the rituals, everything changed in a way I didn't expect. Men came to me, not just men I liked, but men from everywhere. Suddenly, I had attention from people I never imagined would notice me. It was strange, beautiful, and frightening. The married man's attention became more intense. He would text me at odd hours with poems and songs. He would drive across town just to hand me bread. He began to neglect his wife more. I could tell he would call less and less. He told me the divorce papers were in process. He told me he was serious about me and my son. He gave my mother money. He paid for a small deposit on a house in the Windhoek. I started to picture a future where my child would grow up with a steady father. My mind made pictures of white walls and a safe neighborhood. But then the dream started. At night, I began to have the most disturbing dreams. In these dreams, I was never fully myself. I woke up with a feeling that something had been taken from me. Sometimes I saw strange shadows moving at the edge of my bed. Sometimes I would wake in the middle of the night with cold sweats, thinking of animals. Not in the way you might fear, but animals appearing in my home like visitors, standing where my son should be sleeping, staring at me. I would wake up and not be able to explain why I was crying. I began to feel like I had invited something into my life I could not control. I started to drink to calm down, a bottle of wine in the evening, then 2, then sometimes more. Alcohol made the noises in my head quieter, but made me do things I later regretted. I would call the married man and say things I shouldn't. I would ask him to leave his wife. I would beg. He would calm me down and say tender things. Then one night, I tried to end it. I thought if I left him alone, if I broke up with him, maybe the strange things would stop. I told him I wanted distance. The response I got broke me. He called me, but this time his voice was broken. He cried and said he couldn't live without me. He said that he had thought he was dead inside, that meeting me had woken him up. He begged me not to leave. He said he had tried to be strong for his family, but his heart had already chosen. He threatened to hurt himself. I heard desperation in his voice, and my world tilted. For the first time, I realized I had power, too much power, over the fragile human being. I never wanted someone to be driven to that point because of me. When he nearly did something irreversible, his family rushed in. They found him collapsed. They worked to save him. The news spread through family circles and mine. My mother was ashamed. My son questioned why his father was crying in the phone. I didn't know what to do. I felt guilty. I felt responsible. I felt terrified of the consequences of my choices. And at the same time, I felt trapped by the fact that this man had given us hope. Hope that came with the strings I could not untie. A twist came after that, something that made my stomach drop. One of the Sangoma's assistants was arrested for tricking people in the area. The assistant had been selling fake mixtures and scamming vulnerable women. I went back to confront the Sangoma to ask her what she truly had done in those rituals. She denied the worst. She said there was no magic. She said the power came from the belief of the people who visited. She said she had never told me to do anything that would harm someone else. But something in the assistant's arrest made me question everything. I had been manipulated. Had someone taken my fear and turned it into a market? Had someone used my desperation against me? Another twist. The married man's family, the ones who had welcomed me, began to gossip behind closed doors. Some said I was a gold digger. Some said I had bewitched him. I heard whispers of mulambo and bad luck as if I were a problem that needed solving. The same people who had smiled to my face now looked at me as if I had done a crime. My mother defended me fiercely, but the conversations continued. The man's wife, when she finally confronted him, cried and called me names I won't repeat. I felt cornered. Yet, sometimes, the man would bring my son gifts and tell him he loved him like a real son. My son laughed with him, and that would always make everything okay again. There were moments of genuine tenderness. There were dinners where I saw us as a normal family. There were times when I felt that maybe all of this, rituals, whispering, the messy divorce, will end in something beautiful and safe. But the house in Windhoek, he did buy it. He paid the deposit and promised to finish. He told my mother and mine that he was serious. He even started paying small bills in my name so I could breathe. I remember crying in church one Sunday, thinking, is this how miracles look? Then I found a message between him and the Sangoma. I wasn't snooping to hurt him. I was trying to understand why my dreams were changing and why my life felt like a roller coaster. I asked myself, who is this Sangoma to him? Why did he bring me to her? The message was short and sharp. Patience shows signs. Proceed slowly. That message made me sick to my stomach. It felt like I had been a project, like my feelings were just a case someone had decided to test. I confronted him. He looked at me with tired eyes and said, I only wanted what was best for you. I thought the Sangoma would heal you. He was silent for a longest time. Then he said, maybe I was wrong. There was remorse in him, but there was also something deeper I couldn't name. A stubborn need to fix things his way. I realized he wasn't only a victim or only a villain. He was human, complicated with his own mistakes and poor decisions. After that, I changed my approach. I stopped going to the Sangoma. I stopped answering his calls for a week. I tried to find real people that could help me. I went to a counselor who listened without casting spells or giving promises. She told me that sometimes when people are desperate, they will reach for anything that offers hope, even rituals that make them feel odd. She taught me breathing exercises to reduce panic, and she told me to document my dreams, my feelings, and every strange thing I noticed. She advised me to keep my son's routine steady and not to mix his normal life with the mess of adult choices. Her voice was ordinary and calm, and for the first time in months, I felt slightly steady. But the community wouldn't let things settle. One day, the man's wife showed up at my mother's house. She did not shout. She did not curse me in public. She arrived with a quiet look that cut through me. She said, I'm not asking for his head. I'm asking for my children's peace. She sounded tired. I felt sympathy. In that moment, I saw her eyes more than an obstacle. I saw her as a person with her own grief. We talked for a long time. She asked me one thing. Are you here because you love him or because you were promised a life? I had no honest answer at first. I started to cry and said, I am confused. She looked at me and said, so am I. That conversation changed something in both of us. We didn't become friends, but we stopped being enemies. Another twist came when the married man's divorce hit a snag. A document went missing, something important. This delayed everything. I thought we would be safe. I thought we would have time to breathe. Instead, the delay made his family suspicious again. Rumors started that perhaps he wasn't serious. Perhaps he had never intended to leave his wife at all. I felt like I was living in a house of cards. At my lowest, I almost did something I would have regretted forever. One night, I walked to the bridge near my home with a bottle of wine and my son's favorite blanket in my arms. I remember standing there and thinking about how I could disappear and make everyone stop hurting. I thought about how easy it would be to the end. I thought about how easy it would be to end the noise. Then I felt hands on my shoulder. It was my neighbor, a woman who always smiled and waved at my son. She sat with me on the curb and didn't say much. She just put her hand over mine. She told me a story about her own failed marriage and how she had found some small things like a job at the market and a morning run that slowly made her feel like herself again. Her presence grounded me. She didn't fix my problems, but she stopped me from making a decision I couldn't take back. That is when I began to pick up the pieces. I talked to my mother honestly about everything. We laughed about ridiculous things we had done to survive before and cried about mistakes that had scars we still carried. I told my son small stories at night that had nothing to do with grown-ups. I started saving every coin I could and looked for work that would keep me steady. The man and I had a hard conversation where we both admitted to hurting each other. He said he loved me and that he had been foolish. I told him I loved him the way someone loves a person who once kept them warm in a storm with gratitude and caution. We stopped the grand plans for a while. He returned the deposit money for the house. He said he could not risk my reputation or his family peace any longer. He felt anger and relief at the same time. I also started to learn about the power of belief. I met a woman at the counseling center who had been through traditional healing before. She told me that the mind is fragile when hope is thin, and come men use that. She told me the Sangoma business is complicated. There are true sincere healers, and there are people who prey on fear. She told me that what I had experienced could be partially spiritual and partially manipulation. That helped me to see that I was not a monster for wanting help, or for accepting gifts, or for seeking a future for my child. It helped me to see that I could make new choices. Now, I still have nightmares at night. Shadows appear in my sleep, but they are less scary because I know they are not the only thing in my life. I still drink sometimes. I still miss being chosen by someone who would stay. But I have rebuilt a small life that is mine and my son's. I walk, I laugh, I argue with my mother about who cooks better, and I go to sleep before midnight most nights. The man and I do not speak as we used to. We speak with distance and respect. He supports my son occasionally, but he is rebuilding his life with his own remorse and choices. I don't know if we will ever be together in the way I once imagined. Maybe we never should have been. If there is a lesson in this confession, it is messy and simple at the same time. Desperation can make you trust the wrong people. Traditional help can heal, and it can hurt, sometimes both at once. People are not just villains or saints. They are complicated and capable of both love and harm. You must protect your child and your mind first, before any promise of a future. And finally, a small hand on your shoulder from a neighbor or a friend can stop you from falling into anything you cannot return from. To the people who sent me messages after the last video, the DJ who wants to grow his business without blood, the sisters who asked about rituals, I hear you. If you have talent, if you have a sound system and a dream, please give yourself to the craft first. Build slowly. I will try to help those who ask me sincerely. Send your music, send your videos. I will try to support good people with honest work. I will not promote anything that asks for blood or harm. Please, tell me what you think about this woman's confession in the comment section. Dear listeners, things they really happen for this our world. Now, wow.